Hey there, ToolBankers. This is Mark Broadbeck.
And this is Kevin Lynch.
And this podcast is a walkthrough of a cold prospect conversion. You know, the most effective method of converting a cold prospect into a warm prospect requires a tag team cultivation approach by the executive director and a board member. This dynamic team works in concert to start and then cultivate a relationship with the cold prospect by articulating the vision and the mission and sharing the news of recent achievements at your ToolBank. You know, as we outlined in the podcast titled Red Hot Fundraising, the process may include an initial letter of introduction, a phone call from the director, a series of in-person meetings, and ideally, a tour of your ToolBank. Through the application of professional persistence, the ED and the director have a strong likelihood to convert the cold prospect into a warm prospect.
Let's talk through an example of a cold prospect conversion. The strongest start to prospect cultivation is when the ED is highly familiar with each director on their board. New directors complete the board info page upon joining the board to provide the ED with a clear picture of the director's network. The ED should connect with new directors via professional social media, like LinkedIn, to gain greater clarity on the director's personal and professional network. The ED will also conduct periodic one-on-one conversations with directors so that the ED stays abreast of possible new avenues of support and outreach, including those that may not be immediately valuable to the director. The ED then selects a cold prospect. The ED looks at their roster of directors and determines which director is in the best leveraging position to convert that prospect from cold to warm. The ED asks that director to make the initial approach to the cold prospect and equips the director with the essential collateral items: an introductory letter, the ToolBank brochure, the ToolBank's annual impact report, and any other recent news articles about ToolBank accomplishments. The ED coaches the director on the best method of approach, be it phone, email, letter, and should provide a short script that will help the director conduct the initial outreach with confidence. The ED should also provide key background information about the prospect or their company, such as whether their company uses ToolBank tools for corporate volunteer days, and if so, how much, details on the giving focus areas of the prospect and how the ToolBank impacts that focus area, and any other pertinent information that might prompt a connection to the prospect. Finally, the ED should approach the director with a clear understanding of the desired outcome of the approach. This helps the director guide the conversation as necessary.
The spotlight is now on the director, who reaches out to make initial contact with the cold prospect with the typical goal of setting up an in-person meeting. The director prints and signs a letter of introduction provided by the executive director and adds a personal note enclosing the ToolBank brochure. The letter mentions that the director will follow up in a few days, which they must do because that's how professional persistence works. A cold prospect may not return the director's call in a timely manner, or possibly at all. This will not deter a ToolBank director who remains professional by persevering and attempting to contact the prospect again in a few days. The burden of making contact falls completely upon the director in the process of fundraising. The director should be assertive but professional as they attempt to make contact. Once they do, they should be positive, enthusiastic, and of course, professional. The director states their name, the name of the company they work for, and their title. Next, the director states that they are volunteering as a director for the ToolBank and that they are contacting the prospect on behalf of the ToolBank. The director might ask if the prospect has ever heard of the ToolBank. Regardless of whether the answer is yes or no, the director should provide a succinct overview of the program and examples of recent achievements. Now, this is where a solid grasp of the ToolBank talking points comes in very handy. The director should invite the prospect to meet for a tour of their local ToolBank and an introduction to the ToolBank's ED. Ideally, the prospect will accept the invitation, but if they represent a private or corporate foundation, they field dozens of prospecting calls every day, and they might simply provide detailed information on their giving requirements right then and there. Whatever the prospect says, the director should take detailed notes during the conversation and ask questions in hope of obtaining more information. Once that call has ended, the director summarizes the call in an email to the ED without leaving out a single detail.
Now the focus goes back to the ED, who records the information learned in the call into the ToolBank's development records, and develops a strategy for next steps. If the prospect has identified a deadline for a funding approach, the ED adds it to their calendar and executes it when the time comes. If the prospect is interested in taking a tour of the ToolBank, the ED sets up an appointment for a meeting with the prospect the director who performed the outreach, and themselves. The in-person meeting should start with introductions, a quick tour of the ToolBank facility, and ultimately lead to an office or space where those in attendance can talk quietly and without interruption. The director and the ED have distinct and important roles to play in this meeting. The director's role is to underscore the achievements of the ToolBank and its importance to the community. The director might discuss recent service projects fueled by ToolBank tools and share impact data.
Now, the ED's role is to articulate the vision and the goals of the ToolBank and connect them to the vision and goals of the prospect's company. The executive director must be familiar with the company or foundation's giving history and their philanthropic focus. You can't simply talk about the ToolBank. You have to tell the prospect about how your ToolBank meets their interests. In this meeting, the ED is a thoughtful and engaged executive who can succinctly and confidently make a compelling case as to why the prospect should support the ToolBank. The ED should also be ready to provide accurate answers to nearly any question the prospect may have about budget, committees, you name it. Together, the director and the executive director make a superior team. Prospecting meetings where the director or the ED are not present result in a lopsided representation of the ToolBank, so it's important that the dynamic duo work together whenever possible.
During the meeting, the ED should clearly state the kinds of assistance the ToolBank is seeking, and then ask the prospect what kind of help they're willing to offer the ToolBank to advance its mission. If the ED is hoping to submit a proposal for support to the prospect's employer, the ED will bring a basic menu of donor opportunities to the meeting: sponsorships, types of donor acknowledgement, board placement opportunities, and so on. These should always be customized to the interests of the company. At the very least, add their logo to one of your collateral pieces. Maybe you're asking the prospect to connect you with a board candidate from their company. In that case, provide the types of skill sets your board is seeking in your recruitment prospectus, and then ask how the prospect's company typically handles board placement. Whatever types of support you hope to obtain, make sure your collaterals speak directly to that goal. If the prospect mentions an unexpected type of support, let them know that you'll follow up with supporting information. At the end of the meeting, review the tasks that came out of the conversation and let the prospect know that you'll follow up promptly. Make sure the prospect does not leave empty-handed. Leave them with your brochure and just one or two additional collateral items that best represent your ToolBank. And finally, be sure to thank them for taking the time to meet with you.
Then there's the follow-up. The follow-up to a conversation with a prospect is easily as important as the meeting itself, and yet it's the part of the process that's often overlooked. Both the ED and the director have very important professional persistence tasks in the follow-up to a meeting with a prospect. Upon completion of the meeting, the ED drafts meeting notes that include all the pertinent information learned in the meeting. Stick to the facts, avoid opinions, and maintain professionalism. This isn't a diary. Include organizational changes, funding opportunities, potential funding opportunities, anything that could be useful sometime in the future. The ED then shares the meeting notes with the director who participated in the meeting to obtain any information that may have been overlooked. The meeting notes are saved in the ToolBank's development records, which are the institutional memory of the ToolBank that grows as more and more directors meet with more and more prospects. The notes of this meeting will inform the annual fundraising season and strengthen future approaches to this particular prospect.
The director's part in this follow-up process is to send a note of appreciation to the prospect via snail mail, thanking them once again for taking the time to meet. This is of the utmost importance. You've converted a cold prospect to a warm prospect. This new warm prospect should now be contacted during your annual fundraising season every year, receiving great news from the local ToolBank. The trick now is to execute the tasks and opportunities that come from the meeting, and demonstrate to the new warm prospect that you're taking full advantage of the opportunities they've provided. The ED adds the prospect to their newsletter mailing list, and the director provides the newly converted prospect with updates and news of recent achievements. The continued flow of positive progress updates and opportunities to get involved is what converts warm prospects to a red-hot ToolBanker, like you.
So this has been a simple illustration of prospect conversion. But of course, in the real world, anything is possible. The key is to follow through with professional persistence and consistently strengthen your relationship to that prospect.
In the apartment above me, there is the lovingest pair. I don't know what she has to be jealous of. She has a face that just a mother could love. And still I know she's always